Hello, I'm Charlie Clements. I'm currently studying a BTEC Level 3 Coaching and Development Fitness Diploma. Today I am recording myself describing my anatomy assignment. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Firstly, I was asked to describe what is the function of the skeleton. The skeleton gives the body structure and shape. This allows a framework for muscles and soft tissue to be attached to. It also allows movement of the body and of individual pieces. The bones are used as levers, and when they form joints, allow the muscles to move and produce joint movements. This allows us to move in any direction, and we are able to carry out everyday activities. For example, the hinge joint at the knee allows us to kick a football. This is where the hinge joint is, currently where I'm pointing to with the mouse. Secondly, another function is that the skeleton protects all our vital organs found within our body. The bones are used to support and protect them, such as the brain is protected by the cranium, like so where I am pointing here. Also with the heart and lungs, they are protected by the ribs, where I am pointing, and also the sternum. Thirdly, the skeleton also helps with the production of blood cells. This is because certain bones in the body, such as the sternum, the vertebrae and the clavicle, contain red bone marrow, and this will produce red and white blood cells and platelets. Storage of minerals and fats is another thing the skeleton provides, because the bones are filled with minerals such as calcium, magnesium and phosphorus. These can then be used by the body if they require them. The bones can also store dietary fats within the yellow bone marrow. Finally, the skeleton also helps with the attachment of soft tissue. The bones provide different surfaces for the attachment of these, such as muscles, tendons, ligaments. This is why the bones have odd shapes to allow these soft tissues to be fitted on the end of these. I was then asked to describe three types of joints. The first one being cartilaginous. This is also known as a slightly movable joint. An example of where it is found in the body is the vertebrae, because there are small gaps in between each bone which allows slight movement but remain stable to allow it to stay upright, otherwise you will damage your spine. This allows you to rotate your body, also to bend it forwards, backwards and sideways. The second type of joint was the fibrous joint. Another name for this is an immovable joint. The joint is made up of two layers of bone which creates a spongy area which provides protection. An example of this would be the cranium, which protects the brain. This joint is very stable and it allows little movement because the bones are flat and fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, meaning there are no gaps, meaning they cannot move apart. The third type of joint is a synovial joint. This is the final joint and is also known as a freely movable joint because it allows movement in the limbs. There are 6 different types of synovial joints and each one varies according to their stability and movement. For example, a ball and socket joint has a greater range of movement than a pivot joint. The greater the range of movement, the more chance there is of injury. I was then asked to describe different types of synovial joints. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a diagram which could fit all 6 in, so I'll just show you where they are located on this skeleton I have. Firstly was the hinge joint. They can be found in the elbow, through the ulna and the humerus, like so where I'm pointing, and also the knee through the femur and tibia, again where I'm pointing with the mouse. They allow flexion and extension and are like hinges on doors. They can only allow you to move in one direction. Second type of joint was ball and socket joint. They can be found in the hip through the pelvis and femur, where I'm pointing currently, and also the shoulder through the scapula and the humerus, again where I'm currently pointing. They allow movement through flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, circumduction and rotation. The joint is made up of a round end which fits into a small cup-like shape on another bone. An example of when this joint movement takes place is the bowling action when playing cricket. Third type of synovial joint was the pivot joint. This can be found in the neck between the top two vertebrae, currently where I'm pointing now. The joint only allows rotational movement, for example, moving your head from side to side. This prevents you from any injuries with your spinal cord or your neck. The fourth type of joint was condyloid joint. This is found at your wrist and also in the joints between your phalanges and metacarpals. They allow movements through flexion and extension and also in abduction and adduction. Also the saddle joint. This is only found in your thumbs. It allows flexion, extension, abduction and adduction. This enables us to be able to hold objects and do other things such as writing, picking up objects, etc. And lastly, the final joint was the gliding joint. This type of joint is found in the carpal bones of the hand. They occur in between the surfaces of two flat bones. They allow limited movement but in all directions. I was then asked to describe the roles of the axial and the appendicular skeletons. Firstly, the axial. This is made up of 80 bones and lies on the midline of the body, currently where I'm pointing now. This includes bones such as the sternum, vertebrae and ribs. Their main function is to protect the body's vital organs such as the brain, heart and lungs. They do this by absorbing the impact from blows to the body. Therefore, if you were to get punched, say, the likelihood of you suffering internal bleeding or damage to your lungs would be very limited, because instead you would probably just break a rib. And secondly, the appendicular skeleton. This is made up of 126 bones, and this mainly includes limbs such as the bones of the arms, hands, legs, shoulder girdle, pelvic girdle and your feet. Their main function is to help with movement. And finally, I was asked to describe the different types of bones. The first bone, as you see I've got another page full of diagrams, was the long bone. Their body is longer than what it is wide. They are mainly used as levers for movement, and they are normally found in the limbs of the body and also store red blood cells. An example of this bone is the femur, humerus and tibia. As you can see here, I have a diagram of the tibia, and you can see it is a lot longer than what it is wide. And secondly was the short bones. This is where the bone is as long as it is wide. They provide stability, support, movement and strength. This is mainly because they are small and compact. They are mainly found in the hands and feet, and this means there is limited amounts of movement because the bones are so close together. This is a diagram of the metacarpals. As you can see here, there is very little space in between each bone, and this allows it to be strong and stable. Thirdly was a flat bone. These type of bones are often quite thin and flat, but with a slight curve. They also have two layers of compact bone in them. Their main functions are to provide protection of the internal organs. This is because they can absorb impact. For example, the cranium protects the skull. They also are able to have more muscle attachments due to the fact they have a large surface area. Thirdly, here is a diagram of the scapula. As you can see here, it is a very large flat surface area, which again allows muscle attachments to be surrounding it. Fourthly, with irregular bones. These sorts of bones are hard to class because they are normally very different to other bones. They are very oddly shaped, and the main types of irregular bones are the vertebrae. As you can see in the diagram here, they have very odd shapes, so that stuff like cartilage can fit in between each vertebra, which will stop the bones rubbing against each other, limiting the amount of friction in your vertebral column. And finally, the last type of bone is the sesamoid bone. They are named this because they are thought to look like a sesame seed. They have a very advanced roll and are covered in articular cartilage and are formed within tendons. They vary in size from one another, and the main example of where they are found is in the patella. As you can see here on this diagram, this patella is surrounded with cartilage. As you can see here, this basically means that it stops the bones rubbing together and causing friction. Athletes such as marathon runners often in their latter years suffer from cartilage damage because of where the joints have rubbed together so frequently in the bones whilst they have been running. So therefore they normally have to have like surgery on their knees and stuff to prevent this, which can also cause arthritis in later life. Thank you for listening to me. Hope you have enjoyed it. Goodbye.